Well, you know, this veteran class has given us so much great racing this weekend. These boys have been around the block a couple of times, and the gaps have been extremely close. This race is going to be a little bit shorter than the last few. We're looking at 20 laps instead of 25 for the veterans. They're getting on a little bit, so let's try and keep them on the track for as long as we can.
I'm sure they'll be battling to try and hold on to the 20 laps. 30-second board goes up. Visors go down. And engines start as they go up for their warm-up lap shortly.
You know, Leonard, I'm pretty sure Kenny Yip could outrun me on the beach.
He does well to keep himself in shape.
Yeah, he's a solid bloke, Kenny Yip. Oh, and there has been something going on the grid.
Leon Koo ushered to go past. Jan gets his car started, and they're off for their warm-up lap. They'll have to do a little bit of pushing to try and get up in front and meet up with the race leader.
Kenny Yip getting that heat into that temperature there, man. He brought that cart sideways on that lap.
Trademark Kenny Yip style. He likes to go into the corners fairly extremely.
The boy is quick. Now Kenny now holding the pace down. He knows that there are those carts to wait for, so he's just going to be trickling nice and slowly coming for this last formation lap until they all bunch up.
We've got 20 laps of racing ahead as the back of the pack catch up with the front and they get into formation. Car number 154 of Jan Yap driving his 4-stroke. 4-stroke engine allowed into this category with the AKOC rules. And making for some pretty interesting competition. They bunch up nicely. They're given an extra formation lap. Started not satisfied with the formation there. I think there was a little bit of a change in position up the back of the grid there. They'll go out for another formation lap. And it's looking dark and gloomy up ahead, but let's hope it holds out for the rest of this race. 20 laps. As the drivers make their way down the back straight now into turn 6. In pretty good formation, things looking good. All being well, we should see a good race start here. And the driver's looking pretty decent. Let's wait for the signal. And we're off and racing. Positions unchanged as they go into turn 1. Anthony's car looking a little sluggish around turn 2. Could just be taking a little while to get the engine up to temperature, but they've managed to pan out as they come down the back straight. We'll see as they clock their first time, they post their first lap.
Oh, well, this is the closest this field has been on their first lap. This is looking good, and Anthony Xiao, oh, Kenny Yip goes a little sideways, but luckily Anthony doesn't manage just by getting around him. That's good for Kenny.
35.226 on that lap for Kenny Yip. Anthony is 0.26 seconds. The gap in second currently. 19 laps to go for these drivers. As we predicted, some pretty close driving. It's a whole train of karts. There's nothing in between them, less than a kart length between all of these drivers.
Well, I guess the heavier fuel load is making a difference to keep these karts a little bit bunched up for a little bit longer. Just getting out of those corners a little bit slower than they would and taking the advantage away from the better fellas.
Richard Wee tries to make a pass to the inside. He clips the tire of Jan. Looks like they're both okay. As they struggle to try and get their cars back on the track, they can still go out and drive if they can get onto the track quickly. Meanwhile, it's 18 laps to go. Kenny Yip, 34.842 on that lap previously.
Wow, the veterans are going pretty quick today. The last few races weren't really hitting the 34s too often, but Kenny and Anthony are no stranger to this circuit.
And both drivers that were involved in that incident back on track and out and driving again.
Once again, good to see nobody got hurt today. There have been a couple of incidents, a few dramas, but everybody's managed to come home safe.
In the meantime, Leon's done well to pull himself up to third, obviously, after that incident. He's not far behind Anthony as well. And it looks like I'm watching video feed of Jan at the back of the track. I think he's pulling out and he probably has to retire, which is unfortunate. There's 16 laps to go.
Oh, Anthony Hsiao, something happened to him on that lap, putting in a 36.8 with a gap of 2.4 seconds between first and second place. Give Kenny a little bit of breathing room to put the hammer down and try and build a bigger lead. And I think another thing we've learned here this weekend that the go-karting is all about the drivers here. We've seen different manufacturers dominate different classes, but at the end of the day, the same drivers are still making their stake on these trophies.
Kenny Yip with a 34.885 on his previous lap. Anthony is 2.3 seconds behind him, and Leon 1.2 seconds the gap. About a second between each of the drivers. Richard Wee currently in fourth. He's got 23 seconds.
Oh yeah, Richie has definitely got a small gap to build up, but he's got a lot of clear road right now, so he's just going to have to put his head down and try his best to get some quick laps.
Anthony just improved his time, 34.593 on that lap. They've got 14 laps to go.
Oh, Leonard, the pace of this race is incredible for a bunch of slightly elderly fellas, eh, Barry?
I like how you put it. Good save. Slightly elderly fellas doing pretty good laps. I certainly can't drive that quick. 34 minutes consistently, and I only expect the times to drop as the fuel load goes down. And as I speak, Anthony Hsiao does a 34.489. That Vortex engine is certainly doing really well as it warms up. 13 laps to go for these drivers here.
Yeah, Anthony Hsiao has definitely responded to this gap that he's managed to create between him and Kenny. Oh, Kenny puts a back wheel onto the dirt. He is driving on the limit.
It is really a test of endurance and concentration. 13 laps, and as you can see, the clouds are coming in and out. There's sun, there's no sun. Weather can't make its mind up, but the drivers still have to stay focused on the task at hand. 12 laps for these guys. Anthony now 1.8 seconds the gap.
Oh, well, you know, Kenny has done really, really well all weekend. It's almost hasn't put a wheel wrong, and that Auto Inc. Macquarie card of his has definitely been the right machinery to bring him home to the checkered flag. We can just see all his throttle steering techniques here as Kenny comes through this complex. Extremely great kart control as he just manages to turn that kart in by tilting the steering wheel to the direction and hitting those brakes, forcing the kart to do a little bit of kart rotation to save him time on getting through those corners.
Seeing the mechanics for the Tony Kart team, for Anthony coming down to the edge of the pit lane there. I think they're going to try and signal something to him. He's closing the gap though on Kenny. He's got 1.5 seconds on the previous lap. And you can see the class of the veterans, they stay well clear of that blend line. There's no chance of those wheels ever crossing that line. And they stay in control. 34.462, Anthony going even quicker again. He just closed 0.2 seconds.
Absolutely.
1.2 seconds to chase.
Fantastic lap there from Anthony Hsiao. He's put the gap down to 1.2 seconds. He's catching up on him. Looks like we have a race on our hands.
Halfway mark, 10 laps to go as our race leader goes past. There's not a whole lot in it. There's still 10 laps to chase. Anthony coming slowly, inching his way forward. Kenny has a quick look behind. He's aware that Anthony's within slingshot. 34.422, even quicker yet again. Kenny's not going slow himself. 34.4 4:59. There's 1.2 seconds between the two drivers.
Unbelievable. There are only 300th of a second between those two guys on the last lap. It's always incredible, this class. As the race goes on, these two always just get